My name is María José Naranjo Ramirez, and I completed my master's in libraries, archives, and digital continuity at Universidad Carlos III de Madrid in 2023. From 2022 to 2023, I worked as a library assistant at the Louis B. Major Library at the American Film Institute in Los Angeles. This library serves the AFI Conservatory, a graduate level program that trains narrative filmmakers in cinematography, directing, editing, producing, production design, and screenwriting. For my master's thesis, I conducted a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment of the library's book collection. This project that I'm presented today is based on my master's thesis, which I later expanded to introduce author analysis and industry data on behind the camera professionals. So this project began with a very practical challenge: the difficulty of answering certain students' questions using the tools we had. So, for example, do you have a picture book featuring people of color in everyday life? Or I'm researching how to photograph people considering their skin tones. Our main tool was Library World, a catalog with many limitations, but I soon realized the problem went beyond the software. How we cataloged items, what subject headings did we use or not use, and the limitations of the Library of Congress subject headings itself. All of these contributed to making information less discoverable, especially diverse content. As I observed the diversity of the student body and reflected on diversity in the film industry overall, I started asking if the collection could reflect the students we serve, and also if it reflects the broader world they were preparing to represent in their work. I was inspired, but Rudin Sims Bishop's concept of books as mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And I realized that our students were making films that reflected their own lives, opened windows to others, and transported viewers to new worlds. I wanted to know if our library supported that creative mission. So I conducted a DEI assessment focusing on the library's book collection to answer these questions. I analyzed a sample of 1,739 books from a total collection of 26,946 items, focusing only on books related to the 6 AFI disciplines. I perform subject analysis. I reviewed our catalog for Library of Congress subject headings and identified 179 DEI-related subject headings. I also reviewed our keywords and extracted 103 relevant keywords from book titles and summaries to identify content that might have escaped formal subject cataloging. I created categories to track representation in terms of race, ethnicity, and nationality, gender and sexual orientation, and disability. I perform a reverse diversity audit, which means evaluating the collection from a DEI perspective to identify gaps. For the author analysis, I collected available data on authors, gender, and ethnicity. I also used student demographics at AFI. I collected industry data, especially on representation behind the camera. And I also chose a benchmark collection, the Margaret Herrick Library of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which grants the Academy Awards every year. So the findings were that even though books on filmmaking often focus on technical skills, with fewer materials exploring underrepresented communities or perspectives, one of the most surprising findings was how our cataloging practices unintentionally made it difficult to retrieve DEI-related content. These gaps weren't just about what was in the collection, but many times about how it was described, which affects discoverability and access. Another finding was that even though AFI students come from diverse backgrounds, with a significant percentage identifying as women, people of color, or international students, the collection researched did not reflect that diversity. I believe this mismatch may affect how students engage with the library and how welcome or represented they feel. The collection fails to reflect the racial and cultural backgrounds of the students it serves, which can impact engagement, belonging, and learning outcomes. So as you can see, over 60% of AFI fellows are women. However, only around 10% of authors are women, and subject headings and keywords representing women are even fewer, less than 5%. Also, even though 10% of the students are Hispanic, the subject is only covered in less than 2% of the subject headings and keywords used at the library. The findings, I'm sorry if you are hearing, my dog is here and she doesn't want to go away. So the findings about race, we can see that there is a narrow thematic focus within this DEI category. Most content clusters around a few nationalities or racial terms, while others, especially indigenous and other minorities, are underrepresented. The representation of gender issues is heavily skewed towards cisgender women's issues. And we can see that the specific LGBTQ+ topics are present, but fragmented and minimal, suggesting that identities beyond gay men are significantly underexplored. Terms like non-binary, bisexuality, and gender identity in the workplace are not very much used. Disability is the most underrepresented DEI dimension in this collection. Almost no coverage exists on assistive technologies, neurodivergence, or accessibility in media film. This reflects a significant content gap. The authors' audit revealed that male authors dominate across all filmmaking disciplines. And in the industry data also shows a mismatch, the lack of alignment between industry data and the materials available in the library is quite noticeable. If you can see, all the blue lines represent, for instance, women in the industry, and then the red dots that you almost cannot see is the representation of that same subject in our collection. The comparison with the Margaret Herrick Library showed similar values, suggesting that this issue is not unique to AFI, but part of a broader pattern. So in conclusion, the project revealed that our cataloging practices needed improvement. Library staff could benefit from targeted cataloging training, especially related to DEI. The library's collection does not reflect the demographic reality of AFI's students. Other conclusion was that there are gaps across ethnicity, disability, and gender, suggesting the need for targeted acquisitions, DA-based collection development policies, regular audits, and adjustments. And importantly, we believe this is not a problem unique to this collection. Biases happen across all information management processes, especially in the social science. And we think also that the analysis method applied here can be easily adapted and transferred to other contexts. This kind of assessment is beneficial in educational settings. Student motivation is linked to connecting with content that reflects their experiences and contexts. When students don't see themselves represented, like when there is a large gap between the number of Hispanic students and the resources about their communities, it creates a real barrier to learning. So I just want to say thank you very much for having me, for listening to my presentation.